Hello, music listeners and underground enthusiasts. I am doing a show. It is called Wheelbarrow Fest in Brooklyn, New York on September 16th. The headliners, Garden, Swain, Polearm, and Deathwish are going to go crazy. A lot of other artists, myself included, are performing as well. And this is my first time performing ever. At least my own songs. This isn't my first time performing. If you count doing theater as a child, and many would not. So yeah. If you're in the area or you feel like making the trip, come on down and come watch the show. I'll put a link to the show in the description of this video. I'm incredibly honored to have this opportunity. I'm so fucking excited and also a little bit terrified. But without further ado, let's get to the weekly tracks list. There is a lot of really cool songs that came out this week, and I know that you've been dying to form an opinion on them, so here I am to give it to you. First track we're going to talk about this week is Lando's got a new track out with Eden. This is Lando's second track this year, the first being My Head, which was a bright and poppy track that I loved and I thought was an appropriate return after the Out of My Mind album, which was actually one of my favorite projects of last year. And I think that I had certain expectations for Eden simply because over the last few years Lando has cultivated and established such a sound unique to her that whenever a new Lando track is released, I kind of go in knowing that it's going to be so different from anything else that I have listened to recently. And I'm happy to report that Eden is another breath of fresh air in the internet-born genre of digital and whimsical pop. Eden is a song about identity. I mean, that's Lando's name. It makes sense. But Lando sings gently layered harmonies about wanting to, be freely who she is and the anxieties that build around being open about her identity to the world, worrying that, as it says in the song, things won't go as planned. The message is delivered over a cute, bouncy piano pop beat with buzzing and sliding synths acting as the main melodies that Lando seems to employ in most of her songs. The song is incredibly well produced. The bounce of the piano chords fits wonderfully over the flat and somewhat demanding drums, bringing more intensity than anything else on the track. And because this is Lando, there are really creative and interesting breakdowns on the track that give off this ethereal and natural energy. They either sound like the sounds of a forest or from like a bubbly video game soundtrack. I don't know how those things can coexist, but they do on this song. I'm really impressed with pretty much every aspect of this track, from the ambient and spatial vocal mixing towards the end, the whimsical production, and the well-translated message. Overall, this is another great entry from Lando. I'm super excited to see what comes next. We got a new Sewerperson track with Nest of the Night Owl. Sewerperson has released the first single from his upcoming project Elixir, and I think that it is a very promising showcase of what's to come. 2-5-Ski was proof to me that Sewerperson and Nico North can create really compelling tracks together, but I think that Nest of the Night Owl is that sound further refined, showing what they can really accomplish with both of their talents put together. Sewer's vocal performance and mix on this one is one of my favorites in a long time. I love his sort of trademark nasally high-pass metallic sound that he employs in a lot of his hip-hop tracks, but that is traded out for a mix and delivery with a bit more body and, I guess in a way, humanity behind it, which makes sense given that Nico's production and the subject matter are working into play here, because Nico's swirling and foggy ambient chords and twinkling key melodies are reserved and roomy as hell, but provide such a great sonic environment for Sewerperson to do some of his best singing in a while. It is solid, steady, and poignant. I have mentioned this previously, I think in my You Feel Me review, but Sewerperson songwriting has only become more refined over time, slowly dripping in more surreal and abstract imagery in place of more direct similes, and I think that this shift has opened up a whole new world for him to croon about in his machine-like output of music. Nest of the Night Owl acts as a subtle transition into what I believe is going to be one of Sewerperson's best albums yet. It feels like new life has been breathed into his music. I think that him and Nico North are going to be quite the formidable duo. Shizukesa's got a new track out in the form of Monologue. Shizukesa has stuck out to me recently as someone who is keeping the energy of emo rap alive, delivering some wide and brash alternative tracks over the past couple months, so hitting play on this track and being greeted with a boom bap beat was certainly interesting. And honestly, his rapping is good. He takes a higher nasally approach than his singing, and it plays out really well, firing out tight and consistent flows with a mix that complements the stylistic shift pretty well. And some of his mixing quirks do remain, especially in the vocal reverb and the mixing of the background vocals, but they work to his benefit for the track, blending with the ambient melodies of the boom bap production. The bars on this are very, very good as well. Shizukesa feels super comfortable as he raps about doubt in his aspirations, relationships, and his current mental health. It is a context that I would like to see Shizu in more. I think that Monologue has opened up a new style for him to explore and expand upon, and the outro of the track has this layered singing pushed into the background under a vocal clip that I think wraps the song up nicely. If this song was given a bit more length, I think that he could go even crazier with it, which is something that I would like to see. And then up next we have The Less I Know from aftrr. This song is ridiculously clean in every aspect, which is kind of funny because in all honesty, the bass in the production is actually, it's pretty muddy. But I think that the impact and depth created in that element of the production is actually playing to the advantages of the aesthetics of the track. Because aftrr's high metallic vocals cut through that hazy bass like a knife, and as a result creates a sharp and binding contrast that amplifies the pleasant qualities of the vocals. The production leans towards dance and EDM influence, but the incorporation of this slick guitar riff adds a mellow quality to the mix, even when things really start to pick up and go into a higher gear. And I think that when the dance influence really starts to make itself clear, the song becomes a hard-hitting and infectiously fun track, almost detaching from the more melancholy energy that it starts with. Because the high-passed and wispy layered crooning that aftrr pleasantly sings out at the beginning of the track is traded out for a hyperactive and energetic delivery that matches the pacing of the warbly synth melodies shooting out at rapid-fire speed. And with the transition to the bridge bringing it back to a slower singing, I think that the structure of the track is really wrapped up nicely. It's energetic and hyped up when it wants to be, but aftrr still manages to bring in a pretty and poignant vocal performance in the midst of the controlled chaos. We got a new track from Oniboy and Dex with Cemetery Avenue. Oniboy and Dex is kind of a match made in heaven, a dynamic duo if you will, if you are looking for a collaboration that will leave you broken and emotionally desolate. And although I've mentioned this maybe 4 times by this point, I do feel the need to point out once again that both of these artists do a fantastic job of creating vocal mixes that really let their performances breathe, giving life to their singing in the reservations made in the mixing. They stand out from the highly processed and stylistic mixes of their contemporaries and what they typically adhere to. It's not that one is better than the other, I just feel like this approaches the road less traveled. Oniboy starts the track off with an impactfully gut-wrenching performance, singing in this lower, weary tone with softer notes backing each word, singing about this tumultuous relationship dynamic, and the production from Irby and Oni singing initially give off the impression of a stripped back song. I was honestly pretty surprised when the sharp and stuttering trap percussion kicked in, but after that surprise wore off, I had no issue with it at all, as it serves mostly as a contrast to the more relaxed and reserved qualities of the track. And Dex's verse is just as emotional and poignant as Oniboy. Despite knowing what he's capable, I'm still impressed every time. The song discusses turmoil and fault without being self-flagellating, which I feel like gives more depth and nuance to the relationships and narrative being depicted here. Overall, I really enjoyed the track a lot. 2 really great performances, some great production from Irby, and a general cohesiveness that I appreciate a lot. Carbine's got a new track with Save featuring Kuru. I'm just gonna get into the big part of the track right away. This is what I love about it. The production is insane. The instrumentation is so fitting and cohesive, and it maintains that consistency even with so many changes in production and switch-ups being laid out across the song like traps for the listeners to fall into. The heavy and wavy chords at the beginning set a spacey and deep tone, but when the first verse starts, all of that is traded out for brash, sharp, and stuttering synths that beep and slide across the environment of the track with a bass line that almost sounds like a car misfiring. And then once again, all of that is stripped away for a bouncy bass line and intensely quick hi-hats that smack the beat with an alarming level of clarity relative to the rest of the mix. And all of the vocals reflect these energy switches, going from airy singing with the intro to a lower and more monotone delivery as the beat calls for it. Both Carbine and Kuru deliver compelling performances that feel entirely comfortable on this futuristic and demanding beat. And then to end things off, we have Riensu with Crazy For You. I can't believe that for the 3rd weekly songs video in a row, I've run into, well, yet another probably end of the year list contender. The production on this track is light, poppy, and whimsical. It's got a cute and pleasant bounce as the main driving force pushing it forward, and it is just so ridiculously fun. It's hard not to smile while listening to the plucky guitar blend in with the organic percussion and the super floaty keys. And Riensu's vocal performance matches this energy perfectly, hitting smooth falsettos as layered melodies fall together to create pretty and airy harmonies. I think that something I can really say is commendable about this track is that Riensu and Sai, the producer of the track, made a song that is complicated on paper and then made it sound so seamless and flawless. The technical aspects of this track are essentially bulletproof. And honestly, with songs like these, I find it hard to describe my feelings on them because so much of why I like this song are for the same reasons that you enjoy something because it's nostalgic. There's a certain warmth to the aesthetics of it, and I feel like that goes a long way for me. And the actual songwriting is sweet and personal. It's genuinely just a super sweet and engaging love song, and I think that's fucking great. And that's gonna do it for this week's list of tracks that I wanted to talk about. Since I didn't get to make a video last week, right over there are some songs that came out previously the week before this one that I think are definitely worth checking out, that I really like a lot. So go listen to those tracks as well. If I made a video last week, those were the songs I was going to talk about. Catch me in the next video where I rant and ramble about the very concept of subgenres. Bye.